like a drink?
Michael Gough's Sexy Parties. Michael Gough's Sexy Parties. Michael Gough's Sexy Parties. While normies know him for his portrayal of butler Alfred Pennyworth in the first 4 Batman movies of the 1980s and 90s, Michael Gough has had a long career in cinema starting in the 1940s. But it wasn't until 1958 that Gough plunged headlong into horror films, beginning with one of the great Dracula flicks of all time, The Horror of Dracula. He played the role of Arthur Holmwood alongside Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing in what would prove to be a defining moment for Hammer Films. After that, Michael Gough appeared in many horror and sci-fi films and series during the 1950s and 60s, including Horrors of the Black Museum in 1959, where he plays a writer of crime thrillers that wants accurate criminal acts for his next book, so he hypnotizes his assistant to make him commit the required crimes using a variety of ingenious murder weapons. In 1961, Gough returned to genre films with the sci-fi horror movie Conga in the role of Dr. Decker, who comes back from Africa after discovering a way of growing plants and animals to an enormous size. He uses the technique on a baby chimp that ends up being the gigantic terror, Conga. Gough was also in a rather tepid version of Gaston Leroux's Phantom of the Opera, starring Herbert Lom in 1962. In 1963, he played another baddie in the horror film Black Zoo, as the owner of a small zoo who uses the animals to kill his enemies. Things greatly improved on the horror front in 1965 when Gough reunited with Horror of Dracula alumni Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee in the Amicus production of Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. a fine horror anthology film featuring Neil McCallum and Donald Sutherland. Aboard a British train, mysterious fortune teller Dr. Shrek, played by Peter Cushing, uses tarot cards to read the futures of 5 fellow passengers with terrifying results. In the same year, he returned once again with Cushing and Lee in the 1965 film The Skull, about a collector who comes into possession of the skull of Marquis de Sade and learns it is possessed by an evil spirit. It should be noted that in 1966, Gough played the role of Dr. Armstrong in an episode of The Avengers titled The Cybernauts. In the episode, the Avengers, played by Patrick Macnee and Diana Rigg, investigate a series of murders of corporate men who have all been bidding on a new circuit element. Each one of them seems to have been killed by a powerful karate blow. So Emma Peel visits a karate dojo, and Steed's inquiries lead him to United Automation, where ex-ministry scientist Dr. Armstrong, played by Michael Gough, is working on an electronic brain, not to mention cybernetic men. Last but not least, in the 1960s, Gough co-starred in The Curse of the Crimson Altar, also known as The Crimson Cult, in 1968, alongside Barbara Steele, Boris Karloff, and Christopher Lee, about a man who encounters a terrifying evil while searching for his missing brother at a remote country house. Michael Gough continued acting until 2010, 1 year before his death, when he did voice work as Dodo Bird for the film Alice in Wonderland. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, please like and subscribe. Thank you.